good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, and we're excited to be back with you. We're going to jump right in, talking about yesterday's message. And so, one of the things you said yesterday, Andrew, was that during this tribulation period, a lot of Christians are going to be persecuted. We want to talk about that, but before we get to that, last week you mentioned that your stance and our stance as a church is that we are pre-trib, which means that all the believers, followers of Jesus, will be taken during the rapture before the tribulation begins. So if that's the case, then where do these Christians that are going to get persecuted come from?
Well, this video is really a good example, I think, of where some of that really happens. I think there's a couple of things. First of all, Bibles don't disappear, and Bible apps don't disappear, and so all of that technology and all of those resources, all of those things still exist. And I think until Jesus returns, not the first time, but when he comes back at the end of the tribulation, my hunch is that this video will probably still be on YouTube. And so not just this video, but thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of other videos and other resources. And on top of that, people have heard the message of Jesus, have heard the hope of Jesus, and have said no at this point in time. So I think but people also talk about, for instance, HBO had a series a little bit ago called Leftovers, or was it? I think it was Leftovers, and the whole play on that was a whole play on the tribulation. Now they didn't, or the rapture and that kind of stuff. They didn't call it the rapture, but here we're talking about a public company running a TV show, and so even the idea of the rapture is out there, and it's really out there very broadly and I think very publicly. So when it does take place, I think it's going to catch people's attention, and many people who are maybe on the fence about issues of faith now, it's going to catch their attention. And I think resources like this video and other videos and the thousands upon thousands of churches have put out there and Christians have put out there are going to be there. And I think many people in the world are going to flock to these resources and look at these resources. And I think many people will make a decision for Jesus because they're going to realize, wow, that was true and that was real, and I poo-pooed it, I mocked it, I laughed at it, I didn't think it was true, and then here, lo and behold, it all takes place. So that's what I think.
And as they realize that, they'll realize that the rest of the teaching that they heard, that there's still the opportunity during that time to trust Christ and follow him will be there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who are going to sit down and do a study of Revelation and in a very different way even than maybe what we're doing right now.
Okay. Now, those who come to Christ during that time, we're told are going to face a lot of persecution. Where's all that going to come from?
Well, I'll kind of answer that, and I can think you guys can follow up. I think there's going to be two major responses. I think one major response is that there are going to be people that are going to go, wow, this is true, and I need to get right with God. I think there's going to be a whole nother group of people that are going to be angry and ticked off at God. And so I think the persecution is going to come from those that are angry and ticked off at God. And the whole world system, the whole flow is a flow of opposition to who God is. And so 2 weeks ago we read from Romans 1, and I would encourage you to sit down and read Romans 1, the second half of Romans 1, starting around verse 18 to the end of the chapter. And it talks about how the truth of God, the knowledge of God, the evidence of God is there, and yet people have rejected that and turned their back on that. I think as pressure comes, but also as the world system is really going full throttle in opposition to God, therefore then people who stand for the truth, who stand for the name, testimony, and the witness of Jesus, they're going to become an irritation, a frustration, and they're going to want to have them removed. I think that's a large part of it. What do you guys think? Have you guys any further thoughts to that?
I think you hit it right on the head.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to add. I mean, we've talked about how that there's God's system, in the world system, which is controlled by Satan. And I don't think things are going to change after the rapture.
Yeah, and after the rapture, that's really when Satan's system kicks in and his influence. Right now, it is a restrained influence. At that point in time, it's going to be an unrestrained influence.
Which is a scary thought.
Oh,
Like,
it's
now
terrifying.
is restrained, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and you see all sorts of evil stuff now present, and yet it's still restrained.
And he's the great deceiver. And so people are going to see this rapture take place and followers of Jesus disappear. And they're going to go back, and yet somehow he's just going to continue to deceive the masses.
And again, as you look at the book of Revelation, you're also going to see that there's going to be a false message presented. And I think people are going to turn to him, and part of that message is going to be an anti-Christian, anti-follower of Jesus message.
So we see persecution all over the world right now of Christians.
Yep.
And it's just going to increase.
More pervasively, Christians around our world are persecuted than any other people group.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today, and we will see you back here
We'll see
Wednesday.
you later.